Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Gerald here with an update for you on the weather forecast for the next couple of days going into this weekend, and also what we're expecting to start early next week. So we'll start the video by saying I do apologize again for not having a webcam today. Unfortunately, I think my webcam is kind of on its last leg, so I might have to kind of invest in a new one. It's starting to look like, unfortunately, which is unfortunate for my bank account and also unfortunate for you because I know the videos probably aren't quite as engaging as they would be if I had a working webcam right now. But I'm going to fiddle with it a little bit overnight, and hopefully I can get it working by tomorrow. With that said, though, kind of the game plan for today's video is we're going to look through some of that severe weather that we are expecting over the next 48 to 72 hours or so, and then we're going to take a look at that pattern change going into early next week and who I think will get a nice break from kind of this summer-like humidity that we have seen for the past week or two. So again, that's kind of the game plan, and with that said, I guess we can kind of go ahead and jump into it. So we'll start with radar here, and we have some areas of the country here under the gun for kind of some showers and storms this evening, specifically here, into the southeastern part of the country. So kind of from the Carolinas back towards Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, really kind of seeing some of these showers and storms. And, I'll be honest, I didn't quite expect this rain to be kind of this far inland today, but it has gotten, pretty far into the western Carolinas today, and even places outside of the coastal areas have really seen pretty, heavy dose of rain today. So luckily, this should begin to clear out as we go through tonight. You'll see that on future radar. But before then, we do have some severe thunderstorm warnings kind of scattered in through sections of the southeast here, and also a couple of flash flood warnings back here towards Alabama, and even some flood advisories and flood warnings down here into the coastal Carolinas. So, again, it's been a kind of a pretty unpleasant day here in the southeast for many of us. But again, I think after today, we should clear out a little bit before we get another round of these storms going into this weekend. So looking at tomorrow's severe weather threat, we have that slight risk up from kind of Austin back up towards Little Rock and then back down through southeastern Oklahoma and towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area, where we have all hazards on the table for tomorrow. So, strong winds, hail, and even a couple isolated tornadoes very possible tomorrow as this cold front sweeps on through this section of the country. Before going into Saturday, we get another area of severe weather to have to watch out for here into sections of the southeast. So on Saturday, we'll be watching places like Atlanta, Birmingham, Macon, Talladega, Jackson, Mississippi, back down towards Baton Rouge and Shreveport, as well as the New Orleans area with this marginal risk. And I imagine by the time we get to Saturday, this will likely be upgraded to a slight risk for areas here into Alabama and Georgia, at least from what I'm seeing on the current modeling. But of course, this is 3 days away, so we have plenty of time for that to change, and we'll hope for that to change to maybe a bit of a better forecast and not quite as rough as it might be looking right now. The good news is for Saturday is I don't see much of a tornado threat on the table. This really looks like more of a kind of microburst and hail kind of setup from what I'm seeing right now. But of course, I'll keep you updated over the next couple of days on what we are expecting with that. But again, tomorrow definitely looks like the bigger of the severe weather days back towards Texas and Arkansas. So we'll look at future radar here, and I'm going to actually refresh this so it's kind of updated to the latest information. But we're going to go ahead and back this up to what we're looking at right now here into sections of the eastern half of the country. Again, we're seeing this widespread rain here over the southeast, but you'll notice as we go through later tonight that eventually kind of begins to clear out going into the 2 a.m. hour here. And going into early tomorrow morning, we really should clear out kind of back into the western Carolinas and back towards Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. But unfortunately, here in the coastal Carolinas, from Myrtle Beach, even as far west as Florence, South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, maybe even up towards Charlotte and kind of the Fayetteville, Greenville area of North Carolina, very heavy rain to start our day tomorrow as this low pressure kind of just really hangs around the coast. And tomorrow, that will, at least luckily, looks to move out a little bit. So I think by the time we get kind of into, I'll move this into 6 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, it looks a lot better than the morning hours here in the Carolinas. So that is definitely some good news. Back out towards the plains, though, different story. While we're getting into that evening time frame tomorrow, I would expect that severe weather threat to really increase for those places that we looked at on the Storm Prediction Center map that we showed here earlier in the video. So again, places like Little Rock, Dallas, Fort Worth under the gun for some stronger storms tomorrow evening, and that could even last well past midnight, seeing some heavy downpours before we get into Saturday morning. And you'll notice this cold front is really beginning to kind of work its way eastbound here, and that's when we will get that severe weather threat into that Saturday area that we looked at on your map. So we'll move this into about 3 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon, and you'll notice nothing too crazy popping up here on the map, but nonetheless, this warm sector here where we have a little bit of wind energy to work with could see some strong to severe storms Saturday, again, in those places that we looked at on the map. So it doesn't look like anything off the chart right now for these places, but definitely going to have to watch out for some severe weather. Another thing about Saturday afternoon is I do expect some pretty big time rain up here into the northeast as this low pressure up here towards Canada is able to feed into that Atlantic moisture a little bit, and we should get quite a kind of train of heavy rain here into New England going into our Saturday and Saturday night before going into Sunday. We really begin to clear out for many of us. I think we'll have a relatively nice Sunday in store for most of the eastern half of the country, minus some of these extreme coastal areas into the southeast and Gulf Coast. So kind of looking at the overall pattern here and why we're seeing this, again, right now we have some high pressure over the eastern half of the country. That is helping to keep things nice into the northeast and the northern mid-Atlantic, but unfortunately this low pressure has been quite pesky down here into the southeast, and that's what's caused today to be such kind of a miserable day for many of us in the southeast, and caused really more of a spring-like feeling day compared to the summer-like weather we've seen recently. But as we go through the next couple of days, this low pressure over the southeast should begin to weaken a little bit as we go into Friday and Saturday. But unfortunately, by the time that weakens, this cold front begins to move on in, and that is going to bring those chances for storms and showers for many of us on our Saturday. Before finally we get through Sunday and especially into next Monday, it looks much nicer for many of us as this high pressure kind of settles in to the eastern half of the country. Now, again, going into Monday, we still have pesky low pressure here around the Gulf Coast and especially the southeastern coastline. So again, I don't think it'll be all fun and games early next week for everybody, but it definitely looks like more widespread clear weather and drier weather as a whole for many of us going into early next week. So I'm taking a look at the precipitation map here from our latest Euro model that ran this afternoon. Again, experiencing some of that rain tomorrow into the southeastern United States once again, as well as that severe weather threat back into the southern plains. But as we move this ahead into Saturday afternoon, again, a pretty well-defined cold front here where we will watch for that severe weather on the southern side of that cold front and heavy rain up into New England on the northern side of that cold front. But as that sweeps on through, those precipitation chances really come down. This is Sunday afternoon here. You'll notice, again, most of that precipitation confined here to sections of the Gulf Coast and especially down into Florida and southern Georgia on Sunday before we get into Monday afternoon. And again, we still have some pesky low pressure down here into Florida and sections of the Gulf Coast and southeastern coastline, but as a whole, much nicer and more widespread clear weather, I think, going into early next week for our Monday, and you'll even see that as well for our Tuesday coming up before kind of going later into next week. I think, again, we kind of maintain much of this nicer weather, but we will likely reintroduce that conveyor belt of unsettled weather back to the Great Plains going into kind of that 7 to 10 day time period. So again, I love showing the dew point maps here this time of year, and again, you'll notice after this cold front sweeps on through, it'll be much nicer, but ahead of it, we still have very muggy weather to deal with going through really Sunday before, again, we get into next Monday afternoon, and as that cold front is kind of swept on through, we, really bring those 50s and 40s in terms of dew points into kind of the fold for many of us going into early next week. And again, I think that holds on for a while here east of the Mississippi. even going into the middle of next week. Overall, pretty dry weather, but again, we do reintroduce that conveyor belt of warm Gulf air up back through the central part of the country, through the Great Plains, and that will also likely reintroduce some severe weather threats back out towards that part of the country that we'll have to worry about when that time comes. So again, we got some unsettled weather to get through here through the next couple of days, but going into early next week looks much nicer as a whole, although again, not quite for everyone, especially you folks down into Florida and the Gulf Coast. Still looks quite unsettled early next week, but for the majority of Americans here in the eastern half of the country, looks much nicer going into early next week. And that pattern could hold on for a little while here for sections of the interior east, going even through the middle of next week and late next week as well. So it'll be kind of a nice, stretch of weather here. I think going from next Monday through next Friday could be a nice time to kind of get out there and enjoy it if you're in places like Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, even places like Virginia and other areas kind of here in the more inland areas of the east. But with that said, again, I'll definitely make sure to get an update out for you tomorrow on Friday, and then again, I'll probably take off Saturday before I come on back Sunday for another update. Although Sunday will be kind of difficult. I'll tell you ahead of time. Sunday's video will likely be a morning video, actually, because I have to work a double shift on Sunday, so I'll be at work from like 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I'll probably be quite busy that day, but I'll definitely get a video out that morning as long as everything goes as planned. So with that said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.